especially if you're not a company that seems to have an unlimited budget or an unlimited capacity to create all of the different ads and to be present on these platforms. With every new platform you go on, it is diluting your budget and your time to create the content that you need to go on that platform. Because even though you can absolutely repurpose content, every piece of content is usually created with the platform that it's going on in mind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode. I never thought I would say that. I really thought I would be doing one video and never again. But here we are, and I'm not complaining. I love doing this. If you're watching my content, you must be interested in digital marketing. And if you are, the great thing about digital marketing is that there is so much content out there. The only problem is that it can be difficult to know what is true and what can be misleading. So I thought, why not invite an expert? And today I invited Leoni Parkinson. She is a performance marketing strategist and a successful entrepreneur. And Leonie will help us debunk the top 5 myths of digital marketing. And we will discuss advertising, performance marketing, videos, and even AI. So, Leonie, thank you so much for being here today. How is it going?
I'm really good, thank you. It's a little bit warm in Berlin, so if I'm a bit shiny, then I excuse that. But other than that, we cannot complain, and we shouldn't complain about the weather
Uh,
because sometimes it's too cold, but I'm good.
Does it ever get warm in Germany?
I mean, right now it's plus 30 degrees. I don't know how this translates to Fahrenheit because I'm operating in Celsius. But yeah, at the moment it's freakishly warm, let's say. I mean, normally it's cold, so yeah, as I said,
Wow,
I shouldn't complain. I should
very,
be
very
embracing the
surprised.
summer. Yeah,
This is a crazy day because I think it's warmer in Berlin, Germany than here in Dallas, Texas.
that's wild. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Leonie, can you quickly introduce yourself and tell us what you do before we move on to the myth of marketing?
Sure, yeah. So I am a performance marketing strategist. I've been in the game for around 8 years now. I started off in working in an ad tech company, in an agency. I've done my fair share of product management, of building marketing tech tools. And then more recently, I've been going into and working in different companies and with in different clients to help them to really hone in their performance marketing strategies with a view of tracking of testing, A/B testing. We love a bit of that. And also incrementality testing to help people to understand how much budget should you be spending in marketing because there is such a thing as spending too much budgeting, right? It's not always a case of you need to spend more, more, more. And I'm not going to say too much more on that because I'm going to give away one of the topics that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, but aren't you worried about your job being in this field? Because I read the news and I keep hearing that, AI will replace marketers, marketing is over. Not only marketing, but other jobs. But I think marketing is a prime target for AI because we use AI for content generation, optimization, all that stuff. And that brings me to myth number one, AI will make marketers irrelevant. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I also had a slight worry last year because I think that all of these topics really became big towards the end of last year, the beginning of this year. And I did have the panic, but then as I delved deeper into it and I thought about it more, I don't believe that AI will take over marketing. Maybe controversial, maybe not. At least not for the next, I don't know, 50 years until robots are going to take over the world. And I've got a few reasons for this. The first reason is that AI will absolutely change the way that we do marketing, right? It will change the way that we do because it is changing the type of tools that we use. But I don't think it's going to take over because, first of all, it is a trend and it's a trend that will probably be here to stay. But we've also seen lots of other trends that did not take over our jobs. Like in the recent years, there was the trend of big data, there was the trend of machine learning, and they've enhanced our ability to do our jobs, but they've not taken over. And the other thing is that within marketing, obviously there's the creative side and then there's the data side. I strongly believe that human input is necessary on both sides because even if you're purely looking at data, if you're purely doing analytics, there is human input still needed to contextualize the data, right? If you see a drop in performance, the AI can flag that. Maybe it can recommend, okay, this might have happened because of this, but it doesn't always give the full picture as to why. And then on the creative side, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that you've seen it. There's a lot of good things coming out of AI, out of Midjourney at the moment, but there's also a lot of bad stuff as well. And I'm talking about like the LinkedIn comments. And, when we fully just leave AI to do its thing, it does not always produce the best content. And I'm also seeing a trend of where people are already starting to get a little bit tired of purely AI generated content, AI generated copy, in some cases, badly AI generated creatives. So I really don't think that it's gonna fully take over. I don't know if you've got any experiences or any input with AI, especially AI generated content.
Yeah, I think that the example you gave about LinkedIn is the perfect example because it is so easy for us to spot ChatGPT generated comment on LinkedIn. And I use AI all the time. I use AI for content generation mostly. And I think this is great. This is a great tool, but I think
Mm,
human input is still required. But I think if you only use AI, then it lacks authenticity.
yeah.
I don't know how much you use AI in your own work.
So I
Do-
also, when I'm generating content like you, I use it to sometimes generate content ideas. Sometimes I'll use it to generate a frame of a text, but in exactly the way that you said, it still needs a human input because you can spot a chat GPT generated piece of content from a mile off. So we need to, how can I say, de-chat GPT the content before we put it out. But it's great as a starting point. And then in terms of how do I use it with other tools, so the main channels like Meta, Google, and Snapchat, they're all starting to build AI assisted campaigns. And these campaigns can be great. However, I would never go on an account and say that's all we're going to use. We're only going to use AI assisted campaigns because, in my experience, the AI assisted campaigns don't necessarily work the best. It depends on the audience sizes, on the budget sizes, on the maturity of the account. So for me, it's just an extra tool that we need to test. And maybe it works better, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense in that part. And going back to what you said before about content generation, I love what you said, this expression, the chat GPT. But at the same time, AI is progressing so fast. I think it's crazy that we went from generating copy to generating images that we can use in campaigns. And now we can even do videos. And, the videos, they don't look that good, especially on the hands. It
The
looks kind of
hands are
sketchy.
always
You
the
can see,
worst.
yeah.
Seven
But
fingers.
what's all right. But what's impressive is the progress we're making. And, you know, video is taking a lot of space right now in marketing, especially since TikTok and the short video became a popular format. And, maybe in 5, 10 years, we will see some really, really high quality AI generated videos. But I'm wondering, how big should be the video part in marketing? And this is myth number two. Video is the king of content and the most important. So what's your take on that? And let me give you my personal example. Let's say I'm cooking something and I don't know how to do it. Then I have two options. I can either look up the recipe or I can watch a video. And I love having the option. Sometimes I just want to look at the ingredients. I just want to look at a few instructions, which takes me maybe 20 seconds reading the text. I don't want to watch a whole video about that. So I think video at its place, not every time. I think other content can be relevant, but I wanted to ask you because you're the expert here.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm going to exactly underline what you said because that is how it is. It is risky to over index on one particular creative format and say, okay, we only do video now. Because, first of all, you might be missing out on other opportunities. Maybe there is something brewing in the background in, for example, on Meta, in carousels, in static images, and you're missing out on some excellent performance because you're only indexing on the video. And then from a personal point of view, exactly as you said, you might not want to watch a video all the time. And Meta and the channels, their algorithms, they know a lot about us, okay? So they know exactly when we consume what kind of content. Maybe when you're on the bus on the way to work, you're watching videos because you've got the time. Maybe when you're in work and you're in a boring meeting and you don't want to concentrate on this meeting and you're quietly scrolling through social media, you cannot watch a video. So that's when an image is best to be served. As you said, it can be consumed in like 10 seconds, 5 seconds. And when you have more variety of content types, you're able to reach your audience at different times in the way that in the way that they want to be reached and in the way that they're ready to be reached. And this is even something that Meta has recommended. So it might be that in an ad set, in a campaign, you always see that video performs best. But even then, it's still good practice to have the other campaigns or the other ad types, the other creative types within the campaign to allow the algorithm to optimize. And especially, you don't necessarily need to spend a whole load of time and money creating all of these creatives. That's maybe when you can use AI to generate some quick creatives and then just touch them up. So, to sum up, I completely agree with what you said. And I feel like you gave the perfect example with, like, yeah, sometimes you just want to quickly consume something. And then sometimes you want to watch a more in-depth video about it. And that is people focused marketing. And that's exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah, and marketing is not a new thing. It did not come up with the internet. If we go 30, 50 years in the past, commercials on TV did not replace ads in a newspaper. So I think every content had its place and time and
Yeah.
target audience. So basically you're saying that if I can generate videos with AI, I cannot make a ton of money easily. So myth number three is false. Marketing is not a quick and easy fix to make more money.
It's not. It's not. And I think a lot of businesses have this idea that, oh, we just need to boost sales quickly. So let's turn on some paid campaigns because it's going to work. And don't get me wrong, you can absolutely see the result of campaigns very quickly. It can very quickly boost sales and be what do they call it? The band-aid on the bullet wound that you need in that moment. However, it's not that you're not getting the most out of the campaigns if you're doing this because like with any strategy, it takes refinement and it takes refinement over time, like testing and learning and understanding how your campaigns perform at different times of the year and all of these different things. And if you're only turning your campaigns on for 2 weeks every 6 months, you're not really able to constantly refine that strategy. I mean, I don't know if you've had any experience because you worked in a lot of e-commerce companies, right? So if you've had any experience of companies doing this kind of practice, or maybe you've just heard about it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And many times they think they hear about the new trend. They hear about TikTok marketing is the next hot thing, and they think if I invest money into that, then it should be easy to reach my target. There are so many filters. I can quickly set up a campaign and start generating money this way. And especially companies with a bad product, they can rely a lot more on advertising and completely agree with what you said before.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd say in terms of like sometimes it can be scary to think, oh, we're going to advertise for paid campaigns for a whole year because it can be expensive. And maybe it feels like too overwhelming to do that. But that's when you need to think about maybe building a budget projection and really looking at it in a different way. I think that it's partly a mindset thing of how you look at the budget and the investment in it.
Yeah, but at the same time, doing that stuff and advertising online sounds like a lot of work because I heard that you must be on every single platform out there. You must advertise on Facebook, you must advertise on Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. So, what do you think of myth number four? You must be on every platform out there.
No, I also I disagree with that one, which is why we're calling them myths, right? So the reason that I disagree with this is because especially if you're not a company that seems to have an unlimited budget or an unlimited capacity to create all of the different ads and to be present on these platforms. With every new platform you go on, it is diluting your budget and your time to create the content that you need to go on that platform. Because even though you can absolutely repurpose content, every piece of content is usually created with the platform that it's going on in mind. So you wouldn't create something for Snapchat and put it on YouTube. I'm not talking about YouTube Shorts. I'm talking about like the normal YouTube ads. You wouldn't do that. You'd have to create two separate versions of the same ad. So what you have to think about is like, what is my budget and what is my capacity? And when you have a limited budget and you have a limited capacity, it's actually better to go on few platforms and do it in a really good way, right? With a solid amount of budget, a solid strategy where you've got the time and the capacity to refine the strategy on that platform, rather than trying to keep all of your plates spinning across multiple different platforms and you don't really know what's going on, and maybe you're only able to spend €10 a day on this platform or €5 a day on this platform. That kind of budget and that kind of strategy, you're not going to have the impact that you need. And if you're thinking, well, maybe I don't know which platform I should go on, you can test different ones. You don't need to stay on all of them at the same time. It's just about finding the platform. And then my approach is always to say, find one platform, do it well, like scale it to the point where you're doing it well, and then start to scale to other platforms. And then you can start to see when you scale to the other platforms, what the incremental value that each one of these new platforms brings to the business.
Yeah, but your example, you said if you have an ad on Snapchat and then you want to put it on YouTube, that would not work very well and it would be very difficult to do. At the same time, if you have a video ad on Instagram and then you have the same audience on TikTok, maybe there's a way to use your Instagram ad if it's successful and test it on TikTok. So how do you see synergies between different platforms? How should I approach testing? For example, if I'm heavily focused on Instagram, how do I approach TikTok?
So you can absolutely do that. And you've just named two platforms that where you could, it's probably the easiest to repurpose the content, especially with because the Reels and on TikTok, it's kind of like the same, a very similar user experience. It's like a very similar flow. Also, the content's very similar. So let me just clarify your question. You're saying that if you were already on Instagram and then you wanted to scale to TikTok, how would you approach that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of overlap between Instagrams and TikTok audiences for many brands.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that makes sense. So exactly that. You can start to test the same creative on the new channel for TikTok. And then I would really observe the metrics because in my experience, what I've noticed about TikTok is that it's really good for upper funnel, but a lot of brands are struggling to make the lower funnel campaigns a success, so make the conversion campaigns a success. I'm not saying that it's impossible, it's absolutely possible. But this is kind of the trend I'm seeing in conversations that I'm having and things that I've tested myself. Whereas on Meta, on Instagram, it is easier to make those conversion campaigns successful. So, first of all, I'd have in mind the messaging, like what expectations do you have of your audiences based on these two different platforms? If you are focusing more on, for example, upper funnel for Meta, what kind of messaging are you putting out there? Like these are people that might not necessarily know your brand and you're just starting to introduce yourself to them. Whereas it might be slightly different on Instagram. So that's the first thing that I'd start to look at. And then you can start to adapt your creatives separately. So you might start off with like the same creatives and then you can start to make adaptations and you might start to see it's like this iterative testing approach that may be more I don't know, very quick lo-fi content tends to work on TikTok better and maybe slightly more polished content works on Instagram. So then you're building like two separate testing tracks and two separate feedback loops for each platform. And as I mentioned before, to circle back to that, because it is one of my favorite topics, when you do scale to TikTok from Meta, just really keeping an eye on the top line numbers of what this investment is doing. Is it purely bringing new eyes into the business? Is it bringing incrementality, like incremental value to the business? Making sure that you really keeping an eye on this to measure the value of scaling to that channel. Because if it's not bringing something valuable to the business, then there's no point in continuing with that test.
Just to go back to what you said before, I think a big mistake a lot of people are making is not considering the stage of the funnel. I think that's a mistake that many people made in marketing,
Mm,
especially when they're getting started and they consider that every channel is equal in terms of where you are addressing the customer and the purchasing journey.
yeah.
And talking about mistakes, I want to talk about one mistake I made when I was started in e-commerce and marketing. I was, advertising and I was measuring my performance, and I was obsessed with the return on ad spend. And I really saw this metric as the number one metric I should focus on, and then everything else was secondary. So, what do you think of myth number five, that return on ad spend is the only one metric that matters in digital marketing?
That's a risky game. That's a risky game. But I just want to name and say we've all done that. We've all been there and we've all found this metric where it's like, this is the this is the one to follow. This is going to answer all of my problems. I don't need to look at any other metric because I've got my ROAS and that's perfect. Um, it's it's super risky. And I'm gonna loop back to what I was saying with the TikTok example. And that is that return on ad spend does not measure the incremental value from the business. And I can give a solid example. So you might have a retargeting campaign. Let's consider an e-commerce company since you're the e-commerce expert. You might have a retargeting campaign, retargeting your hardcore fan loyal customers that are purchasing from you on a monthly basis. It could be, or it would be, that this campaign has a super high ROAS because there's just so many purchases coming through this campaign. It also could be that these customers would purchase from you anyway without this campaign. So all of the money, if you're trying to constantly spend more money to balance out the ROAS of this campaign, you know, you're dumping thousands of euros a month or thousands of dollars a month for my US counterparts into this campaign, it might not be necessary because these customers are long-term fans and you might be retargeting them because it could be it gets to the 5th of the month and they're browsing through the website and they're looking for the new products that you've just dropped, but they cannot purchase yet because they have to wait until payday. But the pixels, the tracking is picking them up and saying, oh, you know, we need to retarget these customers. They came to our website, they didn't buy anything. Or maybe even they've added to the wish list, they've added to the cart, but they're waiting until payday. Those customers do not need marketing, or maybe they need marketing in a different way. This is where, for example, email marketing could work, or something. Maybe they don't need these very expensive campaigns. And this is where ROAS is missing some context around constantly needing to increase the budget of these campaigns. And then on the flip side, you might have a campaign that is getting your business in front of new customers, right? New customer acquisition. The ROAS on that campaign is probably going to be horrible because the new customers are always a bit harder to acquire. However, that campaign could be bringing a whole load of incremental value into the business that isn't directly measured by ROAS.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example. And I think it's difficult to understand this. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, of course, but to go back to your example of I'm a very loyal fan of this brand and I want to shop again because I know the brand and I love them. And I see an ad and I click on it. So there's maybe thousands of people like me. And the marketing manager will see that this campaign targeting me and other fans of the brand is very successful. But it does not bring a lot of value to the brand. It's basically wasting money targeting me. But
Exactly.
it's it's difficult for them to basically kill the one campaign with the best metric, the best return on ad spend. But going back to what you said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And earlier in this interview, a couple of questions ago, you said that brands they don't have unlimited budgets, and many times the budget could be better spent somewhere else. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the budget could be spent somewhere else. And I think sometimes brands can fall into like this very short-sighted view of exactly like investing only in retargeting because these customers are buying all of the time. And it's like, let's only invest in our current audience, but then they're leaving all of the potential people because maybe they seem too hard to target, or maybe it's too expensive to target them. But then I think that the budget can definitely be balanced better because it is to go back to the excellent point that you made about like, you know, if you're a huge fan of a brand, why are they, and this sounds a bit cruel, I don't mean it in this way, but like, why are they spending the money on fans who they don't already need? So it's about, I think it's really understanding like the budget distribution and any money like I would be for saving money on like these very positive ROAS campaigns that are targeting people that would have bought anyway and like funneling some of that budget into the other campaigns to see more of a balance and to try to
Yeah.
convert new customers.
Yeah, and from the customer point of view, if I love your brand and you're wasting your money on me, I would be like, no, don't waste your money targeting me. Spend the money on developing new product and new things I want to buy.
This is because you've got a
I've
marketer's mindset.
you must be right. But I have one question about this performance measurement because going back to the return on ad spend, maybe you have a campaign with a really good metric, but maybe in the corporate world, you're a marketer, just a piece in a very big company. And the reason you don't want to get rid of this campaign is because you don't want to look bad in front of senior management because maybe they don't understand the very specifics of marketing.
Mhm.
So do you think that plays a part, marketers trying to maximize some metrics to look good, and especially agencies that deal with customers who might not be experts in marketing and they want to make the metrics look good,
Yeah.
but it's not the right thing for the business. Do you see that happening a lot?
Yeah, I see that. And it can be really difficult. And especially for people who are maybe more junior in the role, it's scary going to customers if you're working at an agency or going to upper management if you're working in a big corporate environment and saying, like, hey, I don't think that we should spend the budget there. And this is where there is a wider conversation that is needed in companies about creating the psychological safety to have these conversations, right? And we're steering off into like the kind of HR topics and things like that. But totally. So if anybody's out there and they're thinking, oh, I know this about some campaigns that I'm running, but I don't know how to explain it to, the customers or the managers or something like that. Don't be beating yourself up about it because it can be scary. But you could approach the topic and say, like, hey, I learned this about incrementality testing. Maybe we can check this on our campaigns and just see if people are open to the conversation. And in the end, if people are not open to the conversation and they're really saying, no, this is the metrics that we want, then sometimes you have to kind of, especially if it's customers, then you have to kind of agree with them because do you know what I mean? There's a certain amount of like you can inform them of what you know and you can try to steer them in the right direction, but ultimately sometimes the decision is up to them.
Yeah, I completely agree, and
Yeah.
it's not always easy to deal with, especially if I had 1 year, 2 years of experience, it would be scary for me to
Yeah.
deal with that situation. But at the same time, once you understand the concept of incrementality and you can explain to others, I think you can become a lot more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, so Leonie, thank you so much. Is there anything we missed? We talked about AI, we talked about videos, talked about performance measurement, advertising platforms. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think that's everything I think we covered all of the myths that we wanted to talk about. And the other thing that I would add is that because a lot of these myths are based around trends that we see in the industry. And one thing that I always say is because it can be very easy, and Francois, I'm sure that you know this, to get caught up in trends, right? The minute that you think, oh, AI is this new trend, so I have to spend all of this time to become like a prompt master and all of these type of things. I always say keep 70 to 80% of your capacity and your time and your budget honing in on what you know works. And then when something new crops up, spend the other, I'm talking the Pareto principle because we love that over here. Spend the other 20 to 30% experimenting with these new trends and just seeing if something catches wind. And then when it starts to catch wind, you can shift more budget, more capacity to it. But I think it's really important as marketers in e-commerce, in like these online spaces, to stay grounded in what we're doing because if you allow yourself to get taken off by all of the trends, then it's at some point you're going to end up losing control and losing sight of what you're doing.
I agree, and I've made that mistakes. I've seen things, but AI things, and what I was like, "Oh wow, there's this new trend, and I know nothing about it." I need to learn. I need to start doing my homework. And
Yeah,
yeah, I have the same advice: stay focused, because it's very easy to get distracted if you're on a platform like LinkedIn or if you're reading the news, because everyone gets super excited about all the new trends
yeah,
and tell you that your skills are outdated if you don't master video generation with AI to post on TikTok. But really, it takes time before a trend sets up, and of course, you don't wanna. start learning about AI in 10 years. But at the same time, yeah, it's a difficult to balance which trends you should start learning about and which
Yeah.
one you can wait. But I think you gave really good advice to stay focused, and I like the 70% rule, as you said, to stay focused on your work.
Yeah, yeah.
Leonie, thank you so much for all the advice and all the good recommendation. That was really helpful.
Thank you for inviting me on. I've had a really good time with this conversation. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, of course, yeah. Thank you, and you can come back anytime. You can come back in a couple of months to the next five
Amazing.
minutes of marketing. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about.
There'll be more.
So thank you. And if you guys have any questions, any comments, this video will be posted on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find Leonie on LinkedIn. I will post a link to her profile in the comments. And Leonie, thank you again, and I'll see you
Thanks a
guys next
lot.
time.
Thanks a lot. Bye.